Welcome to the Reheat on the Inside Texas Football YouTube channel powered by InsideTexas.com. I'm Joe Cook. We got RT Young. We're going to talk about some of the latest in Longhorn football and in Longhorn sports as well. So make sure you like the video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. We've had it big on recruiting here these past couple days. We've had it big on recruiting over on Inside Texas, but we're going to talk a little bit about the current teams, the rosters that and coaching staffs and everything that a few different SEC teams have. RT, I always like to give them a top 10 because I think if you're ranking 14 through 16 in the SEC, you're diving in some weeds you don't really need to be crawling around in. But trying to figure out the top 10 teams in the SEC has always been a fun task, I guess to say.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like this year the middle of the SEC also is a little bit more crowded than it's been in the past. You have some teams that maybe have normally been at the top that could find themselves in the middle. So it'll be interesting. I'm interested to see your list.
It was me. It was Evan Veith did this on Friday, and this will be a good opportunity to just kind of check in. I like doing this before SEC media days, just to kind of see, if I'm going to be swayed by coaches or not as they talk at the mic in Atlanta. But we'll start it off. Go with the top three. Here's my top three, and I think Evan's top three, even our top four, were the same: Texas, Alabama, Georgia. I think we feel good about Texas at number one. Are you fine with Alabama at two?
I'm interested. What are your thoughts behind that? New quarterback in Tuscaloosa. Obviously, Ryan Grubb comes back, which it looks like y'all know. But what? Yeah, what's the thought process about putting them above Georgia?
I I'm more willing to put my faith into Kalen DeBoer figuring out offense than I am Mike Bobo figuring out an offense, even with both these coaches trying to bring in and break in new quarterbacks. Along with Ryan Grubb, who Texas fans know really well, they saw what his offense was able to do in that 2024 Sugar Bowl. I think that the presence of a Ryan Williams, of some of the other receivers that they have, and the presence of just that quarterback room with what's it, Austin Mack, Ty Simpson, no matter who steps in, even if it's Keelan Russell, as unlikely as that sounds, like I like that room more than I like the idea of Mike Bobo trying to do it with Gunnar Stockton. And I'm not gonna. I always say doubt Kirby Smart at your own peril. But at the same time, like they're not building super teams in Athens like they used to. They're great teams. Don't get me wrong. They made it to they won the SEC for a reason. But I don't see the super team anymore.
Yeah, I do. I think we talked about this about a month ago. I do think there is potential for Georgia's offense to be a little bit more explosive than it's been in the past. Obviously, Nate Frazier's coming back, Oscar Delp, but they added Zachariah Branch in the transfer portal, added Noah Thomas from Texas A&M, and obviously Gunnar Stockton will bring a much different dynamic to the offense, maybe a little bit more explosivity, if you will. Texas fans, unfortunately, are familiar with Gunnar Stockton from the SEC championship, but yeah, so I'm higher on their offense, I think, obviously. And then I think at this point, I just give Kirby Smart the benefit of the doubt that even though they've lost guys like Jalen Walker to the draft, I just expect every year they're just going to reload and that it's just going to be a similar thing to what you've seen in years previous.
Yeah, and I think maybe people look at Alabama and see the Vanderbilt loss and some of the other two losses that they had on that schedule and think there are cracks in the wall. And I don't think Kalen DeBoer is as good as Nick Saban, of course, but I also think that the cupboard was left pretty full. It stinks to have lost Caleb Downs, obviously, and Isaiah Bond to an extent for that Alabama team. But Kalen DeBoer didn't forget how to coach. They're recruiting really well, and they still have a lot of great players. I just see, and again, one team has to be ahead of the other. I don't think this is as big a slight to Georgia. I mean, top three in the SEC. This could be top three in the country too. But I'm going to keep some faith in Kalen DeBoer until I have reason not to. 4, 5, 6, 7. LSU, South Carolina, Texas A&M, and Florida. I know people may not think highly of Brian Kelly, think maybe he's an underachiever. They're still a good football team, and I'm expecting to see some good stuff from them. What about the rest of the middle of the pack, of the middle of the top 10?
So I would put your number 5, South Carolina. This is maybe one of my hot takes going into the season, but I might put them, if I was doing my own list, at my number 3 with Alabama at number 4. So I'm super high on South Carolina going into next year. They just have maybe the most talented roster they've ever had and are ever going to have there. I think that Dylan Stewart is maybe the best just pure edge in the country. If you think of more of that like old school edge, the Mario Williams, created in a laboratory. Colin Simmons is a little bit more of a hybrid, sort of the new age edge. But Dylan Stewart is special. Lenora Sellers is special. So I like South Carolina a lot. I would definitely buy them over LSU. When I'm list making, I like to, put some stuff in that'll occasionally ruffle the feathers. So that might be more the justification for why I'd put them over Alabama. But I think I have more faith in Sellers and what I saw from the Gamecocks last year than I do in Garrett Nussmeyer and Brian Kelly at this point in time.
I I'm a little bit curious about. I do think that South Carolina has a lot of talent. I'm curious about what it's going to look like as far as maybe some of the skill positions around him. Very curious to see, and maybe they don't need a ton as far as skill positions go, and they'll tell Lenora Sellers to play the go win the game position. But I am excited for them. I'm excited to see them. It's weird. You have these teams where it's like, oh, this is a year to make a run. Let's try. And South
Yeah.
Carolina, this is the year they're doing that. Last year was kind of Ole Miss with Jackson Dart. Texas, Georgia, Alabama. They're trying to do it every single year. But South Carolina trying to pop up. Texas A&M at 6. I think as much as we want to laugh at them, 8-4 regular season is what it is there. But that's good for a year one for Mike Elko, especially now that there's going to be a lot of familiarity with Marcel Reed with that offense, with a quality offensive line. And I think one good thing for Elko that's really hard to I guess measure is a lot of those 2022 guys, they're gone. A lot of those guys who Texas fans rightfully called mercenary, they're gone. There's not as much Jimbo Fisher on that program, and you're getting a little bit more football coaching from Mike Elko. I still think they have some talent deficiencies in a lot of areas, but I see good things in their future. I don't know if I see great things.
What's funny about A&M, I agree with you completely, is I think that they could have almost an addition by subtraction in losing some of those Jimbo guys, like Shamar Stewart, who just the draft fell in love with, but I don't really ever remember making a single play during his time at A&M where I was like, oh man, that guy's living up to the hype. Maybe he had a couple good plays in one of the times that I guess in the time that they beat Miami, and Mario Cristobal, but they did a lot to reload at wide receiver, getting Casey Concepcion and Mario Craver. I could see them improving from a program, from a discipline standpoint, and still just being 8-4. And it'll be interesting to see, do the Aggie fans and faithful put up with that? Are they able to see the forest through the trees, and that, hey, even though we might have had the same record, this is still going in a positive direction. There's still positive data points from effort level and from the way that we played. But I just slot them in at 8-4 every year. They win some games inexplicably that they seem that they should lose. Like it seems every year against Arkansas, they somehow pull one out towards the end of the game, but then they lose games that they have no business losing, like last year to Auburn. So it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out. But I think it'll look quite a bit different and somehow just end up at 8-4 again.
I would have had Florida ahead of them, Had it been if DJ Lagway's shoulder was not a question at all. I think we've seen Florida and their efforts. The money that would have been spent on Billy Napier's buyout was instead spent on the roster. It's one way of trying to do things. But it seriously all depends on DJ Lagway. And these questions about his shoulder never are that inspiring because we know that the drop off is big. Texas knows that firsthand. The drop off between Lagway and whoever's behind him is massive. But when he's there, it's a special team. His availability is a big question.
Well, I think with Florida too, they're getting a lot of hype, obviously, because of Lagway and the way that he played in a limited sample size last year. But going into last season, it was talked about a lot that, hey, they have the hardest schedule of all time. They have Texas, they have Georgia, they have Alabama, they have all of these juggernauts in the SEC, and then they also have to play Florida State in the non-conference. They
And
still have
Miami.
a and Miami. They have a hard non-conference schedule. Well, this year is just that same 2024 schedule, but in reverse. So even if they did have a good year where there's some positive data points and looks like maybe Billy Napier's turned the corner, DJ Lagway's healthy, they could still just end up 7-5 or 8-4 again. So I think from an exercise of thinking who could actually be in Atlanta come December, this is about where they belong, if not a few spots lower, because they might actually be a tougher out on any given Saturday than some of the teams below them. But I think some of the teams below them will have a better record when it's all said and done, just because that schedule is brutal.
We'll keep going and finish out the rest of the top 10. But first, a word from our sponsor, and that is Laura Baker.
Hi, I want to tell you about Laura Baker. If you're looking for a new home in the 512 or even at this point, let's face it, 737 area code, there's only one number to call. That's Laura Baker at 512-784-0505. As a member of the elite Andy Allen team with Keller Williams, Laura has helped Longhorns find the home of their dreams in Central Texas. Just ask our resident sex symbol, Ian Boyd, who moved all the way from Michigan to Texas with Laura's help. Laura can help you find what you're looking for in the 512, the 737, or even parts of the 254 and the 210. Just, give her a call at 512-784-0505. Her email is in the description as well as the rest of her contact details. She's a friend. Give her a call.
All right. Ole Miss at 8, Tennessee 9, Auburn 10. There's a team I left out, but any issue with the tail end of the top 10 here?
No, I think Auburn might have a higher ceiling if everything goes right than those teams because of their wide receiver position and their offense. But I think Ole Miss and Tennessee will kind of almost be the missionary position, if you will, of the SEC in this year's power rankings. I think that they'll just be the non-exciting team that maybe they win a game that they you don't see it coming, but I think they'll drop a couple to the bottom half of the SEC as well.
I think somehow Tennessee came out worse from the Nico thing, and I think Josh Heupel deserves some credit for standing on whatever principles they have that guided them. Not to say they didn't have any, but just to say, you know what? No, you're not worth this much. We're not budging in this negotiation. But Nico would have been okay in that offense. I know he feasted on bad teams last year and was a no-show in the playoff and was a no-show at Arkansas. I think he can get better. But now they don't have him. They don't have that possibility. They had to make a trade. And I just don't see the same talent in Knoxville, not just under center, but around the whole offense that's going to make this into maybe a playoff contending team again.
Yeah, as far as your top 10, Joe, I would just say sleep on Diego Pavia at your own peril. That was risky leaving him out. Most people would probably have him in the top 4. Just kidding. But
Paul would.
yeah, Mizzou obviously I feel like is your team that maybe most people would have had at that 9 or 10 spot.
My thing with Missouri is they have been helped by just terrible schedules.
Yeah.
They feast on poor schedules. And we can go through Evans real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, all the same. Has a little bit of different with Florida, A&M, South Carolina. Ole Miss and Auburn there, Tennessee. But what you'll notice, we have the same collection of teams, which means that we, Evan and I, both left out, like you mentioned, Missouri, both left out Vanderbilt, but we also left out the Oklahoma Sooners.
Oh, I forgot about them. Are they still in the Big 12?
Sometimes they seem like they play like it, but no, I just don't think that you can look at Oklahoma, even with the pieces, and think that with Brent Venables running it, even with Mateer, who I think we all agree is a quality quarterback, it's hard to see. Yes, they're top 10 for sure in this conference, and that speaks to the conference. But I just think that speaks to the situation they're in.
My thing with the Sooners is even if John Mateer ends up being really good and really exciting, it's still going to look like almost 2017 Sam Ellinger at best, where it's a lot of hero ball. I mean, they made a freaking return commitment video for Deion Burks, and Deion Burks is a fine kind of possession slot wide receiver, and he's not anything to make a commitment video over. Jaden Ott from California is a pretty good player. But I just ultimately think the weapons aren't there for them to get overly excited about what John Mateer is even going to be able to do, with there still being questions on the offensive line. And then obviously the defense, we talked about last week, their defensive line is returning a lot. I think that's definitely the strength of their team. But if possessions are not limited, if they're on the field a lot, it's only going to matter so much. So I'm just very skeptical of the weapons that Mateer has surrounding him, if that's going to be enough week in and week out in the SEC.
Of the teams that are not on here, so that's 6. That's Oklahoma, it's Missouri, Kentucky, Mississippi State, Vanderbilt. Who else am I missing? Arkansas, and there's one more.
I think you got it.
Maybe Auburn. No. Hold on. I got to get this right. Hold on. Oklahoma, Arkansas, Kentucky, Mississippi State, Vanderbilt, Missouri. There we go. There's a 6. Yeah. Who could go from not on this list to maybe top 5?
I think Kentucky's going to be the worst team in the SEC, so they're a definite out. They're the ones I would give no weight to. Mississippi State, they lost too much in the transfer portal, so they're a definite out. I would say, I would honestly probably say Oklahoma, or if you get a sneaky Taylon Green season, but I think that Arkansas is probably very similar to what they were last year. So I think it would have to be Oklahoma, just on the back of Mateer putting a special season together. Because I think those other teams, what they are. Even Vanderbilt, who could be sneaky. I think Vanderbilt will be a bowl team again. But I think they're going to be in that 500 range. And I think if you're looking at a team that actually could have a high enough ceiling from a talent, from a playmaking standpoint, at the quarterback position, and then maybe a younger player that I'm not thinking of does step it up for the Sooners at running back or wide receiver. But yeah, I think it would have to be them. I can't really think of anybody else unless these 7, 8, 9, 10 spots on your list just tank somehow or have terrible seasons. I don't know who else it would be. I don't think the ceiling is there for the Missouris of the world to really jump in.
I think it's still going to be Missouri, because I looked at their schedule. They play 8 home games, 4 road games. Here's their schedule in order. They get, I don't know why they're doing this, but they get week 1 Thursday, Central Arkansas. They play, I think, a neutral site game against Kansas, the old border war, which will be pretty interesting. Louisiana. They get at home. That's still either in Missouri or in Arrowhead, which is going to be pretty convenient for them. Here's how they start off their second quarter of the season: South Carolina, UMass, Alabama at home. They go to Auburn, which is tough. They go to Vanderbilt, which will be a difficult game, but not a difficult environment. They get a bye then, and I think they have a bye fit in after UMass. So they get Alabama off a bye, which what you want. Texas A&M at home, Mississippi State at home, and then they have to go to Oklahoma and Arkansas. Like, that's super manageable.
Did
8
you
games at
realize?
home.
Did you realize before you brought up the border war, as you said that I had to go look something up, that Jalen Daniels is still the starting quarterback for Kansas?
I did, and I'm
Back for
surprised he's
his
still
sixth,
there.
yeah, back for his sixth year. I know at one point people were like, "Oh no, is this guy going to end up in Alabama or something where he's just going to absolutely dominate?" Texas fans, I think, maybe have a higher impression of Jalen Daniels than most, but he's a playmaker when he's healthy. When that back isn't giving him issues. Sorry for the digression, but I had to verify that.
No, I mean, I think there's some high hopes for them this year. Before we keep going, got to show some love to our other sponsor, that is David McClellan.
I'm just going to say, guys, you probably need a fiduciary financial advisor. And I've got the guy for you. His name is David McClellan with Forum Financial. He works broadly and deeply with his clients as a financial life coach. And he should know something about coaching because he won several national championships as a swimmer for the University of Texas. He specializes in financial planning and has contributed numerous articles to Kipling on the topic of retirement tax bombs. So contact David today to be your fiduciary financial planner and schedule a 1-hour consultation to assess your financial situations. The free consultation is available, so just give him a call. The number is 312-933-8823. That's 312-933-8823. His email is also in the description below.
We kind of get to combine some good news with a little bit of schadenfreude. We'll get to that at the end. But Texas wins the Directors' Cup. They take home the trophy for the top athletic department in the country. Used to, football did not help. Now football is helping big time. It's actually kind of funny. They used the coaches poll. Texas finished 3 in the coaches poll. If they had gone by the AP and finished 4th, the Trojans would be celebrating. But we have some people to thank in College Station, because if they had not split the men's track national championship with the Trojans, then USC would be the Directors' Cup champions. Because they split the national championship, Texas and Chris Del Conte get to celebrate another award for the best athletic department in the country.
On the one hand, the Directors' Cup sort of reminds me of that quote from Ricky Bobby, Talladega Nights, where the kid is running around and says, "Anarchy, I don't know what it is, but I love it." I think that is how most Texas fans think of the Directors' Cup. It's just another chance for us to beat our chests and claim that we're superior. But in a real way, and on the other hand, I think it speaks to the alignment at Texas, to use a Tom Herman buzzword. I felt like when I was on campus from 2009 to 2012, every facet of the university felt very separate, very boxed off from one another. Athletics felt separate from academics, and even the different silos, when you split off further into those buckets, the different sports felt very separate. I don't ever remember Rick Barnes talking about the football team, or Mac Brown talking about the basketball team. Augie really doing anything for the other sports. Women's sports felt like a completely different universe.
It was a separate athletic department.
Yeah, that's true. So I think obviously everything coming under one roof with Chris Del Conte and him really striving and excelling for a united Texas, that's his buzzword, but also just for alumni to take pride in the entire athletic department, I think has made made every aspect of fandom a lot more enjoyable. Because I think interest in the sports that have maybe not traditionally been on the marquee, like softball, despite the fact that they just won the national championship, in general, I think was way higher than it's ever been. I doubt that even 10 or 15 years ago, when the volleyball and softball teams were doing really well, I don't think there were softball and volleyball threads always on the front page on Inside Texas. So I think Chris Del Conte deserves a lot of credit for that, and just how he's really allowed the university to take pride in the whole athletic department and not just football and basketball and sometimes baseball.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. It speaks to a culture within the athletic department. And I know there are a lot of fans who look at Texas Longhorn sports and they only think about what happens on Saturdays in the fall. And I get that completely. I understand that perspective. And, maybe the next thing you pay attention to is March Madness, and then you're waiting on spring practice reports. Like, I get that. But if you're a football fan, well, think about this athletic department often has head coaches meetings, head coaches retreats. And if you're Steve Sarkisian and you look around and you see, Bob Bowman over there winning the national championship and Jarrett Elliott competing for titles and Vic Schaefer in the Final Four and Mike White winning national championships. And I forget his last name, but I heard him, Super Dave, the rowing coach. He's been bringing home national championships. Like, you look around and you see the best in your field or in their respective field in that room, you're going to kind of go like, oh, I need to keep up my end of the deal. And that, I'm sure there are more motivations than, dang, the softball coach has a national championship and I don't, for Steve Sarkisian. There are about 10.5 million that I can think of that are probably pretty good motivation right now. But at the same time, like, you do have to you have to develop an office culture. And the way Chris Del Conte has done that is championships become expectation. I mean, he even lays out publicly top 10 in every sport is expectation. If you don't meet that, then you're not in that room for long. So even if you're a football only fan, it helps to be around other winners and to also see that your athletic director is going to do whatever possible to bring about that winning. And especially for your program, because yours is the one that feeds all the other ones the revenue needed to make that happen. So it's a great achievement. It's great. I think that it's one, not in spite of football, but with football. Would have liked to got a little bit more from the men's basketball program, but it's
But I
still
think that speaks to what you're talking about, Joe. I think the basketball program, in a lot of instances, that would be two second round appearances, 2 years in a row, Elite Eight the year before that. For a lot of schools and most athletic departments, what Rodney Terry had done would have been justification to keep him around. It remains to be seen. Obviously, if Sean Miller is the guy to take Texas basketball to where it wants to go, but the firing of David Pierce, or I guess not renewing David Pierce, and going and getting Jim Schlossnagle and getting Sean Miller over Rodney Terry, that speaks to what you're talking about. That just being good is not enough for this athletic department or Chris Del Conte. He wants them, like you said, to be top 10, to be in national championship contention in every sport. I think I've heard him say before.
Exactly. And kind of like I mentioned, he is the athletic director for the whole athletic department. Texas had men's and women's split for so long. And so he's brought about not just attention, but resources that maybe the women's athletics ventures did not have if they used to, especially under Steve Patterson. And not to say that Mike Perrin left it in disarray, because I don't think that wasn't his job, but Chris Del Conte is dedicated a lot to making sure all the different sports are succeeding, including women's sports. And we just saw that with Mike White in Oklahoma City. So great achievement for the Longhorns, and one that, you hope keeps going with momentum, keeps it going to football. And instead of these large crystal vases, you see a gold football looking trophy in there before too long. So will be fun to talk about. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. And of course, head to InsideTexas.com. Got the link in the description. Head to LonghornAlphabet.com. I know Father's Day just passed, but if you're looking for a kid's book to teach your kids about the burnt orange, well, RT, what will they know?
Well, Joe, I think we're 70 something days away from football now. And I mean, do you want your kids come the fall to be asking to change the channel in the living room when football's on Saturday? Or do you want them to sit next to you and get excited about the horns, get excited about Saturdays with dad and a whole day of watching football? Longhorn Alphabet is the way to do that, whether it's getting them excited about DKR, going and seeing the Earl and Ricky statues and saying, Dad, Mom, I know who that is. Or just by getting excited about game day. If you're watching on TV from afar, away from Austin, longhornalphabet.com is the way to do it. It's available a lot of places locally, like the University Co-op, and more are being added every week. So yeah, go check it out.
Go check it out. We'll see you next time on the Reheat. Thank you for watching. Make sure you head to the InsideTexas.com. Go to our front page. All the recruiting updates you may be looking for, we got them there. RT, thank you so much. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.